Aloha, here we are on Big Island. It's October 22nd. We are at Captain Cook here with Joe Akana.
Aloha, everyone.
There has been a little bit of controversy with a video that you released recently about a woman's kuleana. So I want to ask you, for the record, what is your position on pro-life versus pro-choice? What's the story?
So, guys, I'll just tell you right up front, I am 100% pro-life, right? 100%. I do, however, and the whole point of the video was to show that we have a choice. A woman has a choice what to do with herself and her body. It's just she's going to have to live with the consequences of whatever her choice is. Again, the difference is what Roe versus Wade, or the overturning of Roe versus Wade, was real simple. It gave the power and the authority back to the states to decide what they want to do, hence giving it back to the people within the state to make those determinations on the funding of it. That's the key. That's what we got to be looking at, is the funding issues regarding Roe versus Wade and the overturning of it. Because now that burden is back to the states, and the state now has an opportunity to decide what they want to do. The woman, the person, the mom of the potential baby has the right to decide what she wants to do. That's her, again, it's her kuleana.
So whether or not you agree with their choice, it's not your right to tell them what they can and can't do.
Well, I don't think it's anyone's right to tell anyone in any part of their life what they can or cannot do, unless they're breaking laws. You know, then that's where you have judges, you have the judicial systems. But to actually tell somebody, oh, you can't go here because you can't do this.
You know, let me be the devil's advocate here, or perhaps God's advocate here. Many would say that this is in violation of natural law or God's law because those are human lives that are being taken from the womb.
Right. So again, I don't have the right to judge anyone for what their decisions they make in their life, right? That's not for me to do. They're going to have to, at the end of the day, when they meet their God in heaven, they're going to have to answer to him, not to me. I'm not their judge, right? And I don't think anyone can be anyone's judge. You know, during the time of the vax, some of you guys may remember people were saying, my body, my choice about the vax. Well, if it's my body, my choice then about the vax, it's still my body, my choice for the woman with regards to the abortions, right? If that's what they choose to do. It's still your body, your choice. I'm agreeing with that. But again, I am 100% pro-life on this, and I will never do something like that. And I don't feel I should have to fund it, or anybody else have to fund it, right? No taxpayer dollars should be spent on that. That's going to be a decision that they have to make. And if they made the choice to put in the position they're at, then that's the decision they're going to have to make as well. Right?
And here's something that a lot of people are not talking about, at least in the political sphere, which is Planned Parenthood itself, its inception. Margaret Sanger, the founder, like what her background was with eugenics, and what's actually happening with this fetal tissue that is being aborted. What are they doing with it afterwards?
Yeah, I mean, I have seen some portions of, videos, and everything's all a subject point of view. But I've seen videos where they're actually selling the body parts to, whether it be to labs, whether it be to other places, where I've seen babies' kidneys being sold as much as $2,300 from an aborted fetus. And the later the term, the longer that it lasts. Again, let's just be clear, guys. I think this is absolutely, I just think it's absolutely wrong to be out there to taking babies' lives, and especially as you get later and later into pregnancies, where they're talking about 28 days after the birth of a child, that you can now go and still abort the child. No, that's called infanticide. That's killing a child. They're born. They're already alive. You cannot just kill them after 28 days and take their life away. You cannot kill them after, shouldn't even be after 3 months. Shouldn't even be after anything after that. Again, unless there's an endangerment to the mom. I get that. I understand it. An endanger to the mom, maybe with the child, the endanger to the child, the mom, where you have rape or incest or something of that nature. But let's be clear on that. Let's be really, really, really clear on that. In Florida, as an example, 2018, I used this stat before, but in 2018, there were 70,000 abortions, right? Of those 70,000, only 303 were because of rape, incest, or endangerment to the mother of the child. That's a 0.004% ratio. That's not even 1%. So if you're talking about that and looking at those kind of facts, that is 0.004. That is the small amount of this number. Is that an exception? That's an exception. That's not the rule. That's not the way it should be, right?
But rather, people start using abortion as a convenient prophylactic
As
because
a form of birth control.
they failed to be responsible in the first place.
Right. And not only that, but they fail to be responsible to make responsible choices. And that really falls on all of us as parents. We have to be teaching our children about responsibility and are being able to raise responsible children to become responsible adults. That's our kuleana as a parent.
Yeah, I'm a dad, and I know that I created a miracle of life, and it is my kuleana, my responsibility to do everything I can for her.
Right.
And yeah, I think that our world is losing this sense of kuleana, this sense of responsibility, especially in America, where people just want a push-button solution, something very easy.
The microwave societies, right?
Yeah, and having lived in China, where post-birth abortion is still kind of common, or during birth abortion, I see America slipping towards communist type of rule, Chinese communist, with Chinese characteristics, which is what we don't want.
No.
America is becoming a godless country where people are selling these body parts and these stem cells, and they say that it's for the greater good, but there are a lot of evils on the way. The means don't justify the ends.
Well, again, when you go back to the Planned Parenthood issue of, the selling of body parts, the funding they received something like $270 million a year. I mean, it's an insane amount of money, and they're going to say, oh, it's for children to do education and all these other things, to have access to programs and be able to have ability to, and for people of color that don't live in necessarily very affluent areas to be able to have access to these things. And I'll just tell you, in my own opinion, that's a bunch of bunk. In Hawaii alone today, they all have, everybody has access to a medical. You have MedQuest, you have HealthQuest, you have Queens, you have all of these different systems that gives you access, anyone access to it. The governor already signed an executive order basically saying we're going to be funding these things. And so if he's already signed that, why are we going to continue to push to have more access to more funds for something else? See, that's an issue that got to have to resolve.
And the nature of bureaucracies, they're always hungry to grow bigger and get more funding.
Right.
And produce
spend more
less
money.
results.
But again, it's going to come back to you're going to spend more money, and who's going to be footing that bill? You and I, the common taxpayer. And I don't think that's right. We should not be funding somebody else's poor choices. Even though we do enough for that as it is, but that's another story.
Yeah. Trigger warning, Kanye West said most of the aborted babies are black babies.
Start to think about
Gonna
that
let
for a
that
minute.
one sink in for a while. So, Joe Akana is pro-life,
100%.
thinks of abortion only as being a last-ditch resort, that maybe there should be barriers to this. Like, maybe you do need to fly to another state if you want to kill a baby, right? It's going to be a lot cheaper to fly somewhere else to abort your child than it is going to be to raise them for 18 years. But you need to think before you take a life. And you are taking a life. Sorry, I'll shut up.
Well, no, I mean, you make a good point there, Andrew. But the issue is that you look at that scenario we just talked about, right? In Florida, only 303 were due because of incest, rape, endangerment. That's a 0.004%. But it's blown up to appear as if it's this huge, magnanimous number. It's such a small amount.
And let me jump in again. This is a tool of the radical left to push these emotional buttons, to trigger people, to confuse and cloud the issue. Like you said, Roe versus Wade being overturned simply put the power back into the state's hands. It didn't illegalize abortion federally, not at all. But people are all torn up and all twisted up and all angry at conservatives thinking that we're trying to invade your God-given rights. You know, this is just craziness.
Well, again, okay, it's your God-given right, but then we don't have to pay for that if that's your choice.
They're godless.
Well, that's their right. That's their choice that they want to make. But I don't have to, and you don't have to, and anyone else doesn't have to pay for their bad choices. Right? This is what we were just talking about just a second ago. Right? We don't have to pay for that. We shouldn't have to be accountable for that when you're not being accountable to yourself. Right? You're not being accountable to doing those things that you need to be doing in your life. Right? So why should I be accountable for what your bad choices were? You know. Recently, there was a discussion regarding this people of color, and I gotta address this issue because I've heard this many times, and in my opinion, we're all peoples of color. I mean, whether you're white, brown, red, purple, yellow, green, I mean, whatever, you're a person of color, right? So that divisive language that is being used as saying you're a person of color, so you should get something better because you're a this or a that, or you're from this. No, guys, it's really important for we to try to understand something here. We are all of the same race. We're all part of the human race, right? So why are we trying to do something different and cause divide within the race, within the human race, right? When we don't have to. Why are we trying to create this division within ourselves when it's not? Who's creating this divisionness? Who's creating this language?
Who doesn't want us standing together to stop paying unlawful taxes or following unlawful laws?
Right.
Repugnant laws.
So when you start to think about those scenarios, you start to think about what it is that's going on. It's like, everybody take a step back and look. What is the language being used to divide the country? And I was asked that question on the PBS Insight about the language that's being used, divisive language. And again, that kind of language, right, is people of color, woman of color, man of color. That is divisive language designed to split people along a color scheme. And can I help it? I'm 40% Hawaiian. Can you help it? You're not. Can anyone else say, oh, I'm this, or I'm African American, or I'm Mexican, or I'm Hispanic, or I'm Italian, or German? No. Again, it comes back to being what I'm going to say. When somebody's not happy with someone else because of their color of their skin, that's an ethnic prejudice. It has nothing to do with peoples of color. It's an ethnic prejudice because you don't like somebody from somewhere else, right? In Hawaii, I think it's most important we judge people or look at people by what's in their heart. What's in their pu'uwai, right? Not on what they think the color of their skin, or whether you're 100% Hawaiian or 10% Hawaiian. It's what's in that person's heart. What are you looking for? When I grew up in Nanakuli, my neighbor across the street, they were Popolo, right? The guy across the street was Samoan. The guy down the street was Chinese. The other guy over there was Filipino. And then I had a bunch of Hawaiian families as well that all lived in the same area. We didn't see the color. We didn't see the person. I mean the color of their skin. We were looking at that person. And when we invited them to our house to have a party, we didn't looking at their color of the skin. We were looking at the food and what we were going to eat. You were looking at that individual like, oh, I don't like him because he's Portuguese. Or I don't like him because he's
yeah, Hawaii has been a melting pot for a long time.
Yeah, so we don't necessarily see the color. You know, a person is, again, Popolo. You know this guy is Popolo because
you're an asshole or you're not. It doesn't matter what color you are.
Okay, I wouldn't have said it that way, but that's why you can do that.
That's why I'm not running for office, guys.
Right. And it's true. But again, it's what's in your person's heart. And that's what I think people forget and need to be looking at. Not necessarily the words they're saying, but looking at what that person's heart is saying. If they are a good person and have a good person with a good heart, right,
actions will show.
Actions will show. Right.
And Josh Green, what you are speaks so loudly, we can't hear what you say. So yeah, we've wandered far from our
You're gonna edit all
original topic. No, but I think one reason why Joe Rogan is so popular is because he does these long form 3-hour videos where we can get deep in. And when he said he wanted to have Joe Biden and Trump like debate on his show, I was praying that would happen, and that would become a standard in America. If you can't talk straight for 3 hours and be a real person and let us see who you really are, then don't run for office.
Right. Well, again, it gonna come down. It's what is that person, and that's the thing about this election that people have to understand, right? We're in a crunch part of our country, right? We're in a time of we could be in for a very, very long, painful slide. We're actually sliding now. We all look at in cost of inflation. You see rising costs of electricity bills go in the state of Hawaii, right? And then over here, right here in Hawaii.
It can happen quick, too, like Argentina.
Venezuela.
Venezuela.
Yeah. And you see inflation over there, what, 9,200% or something. It's some insane number where wheelbarrows of cash get you a loaf of bread. Right? I mean, so let's think about that for a minute. Is that where we want to be? But that's where they're pushing us in a direction of having that, where we're not able to pay
Like
for
that.
our own food, right? Something to this point. But you got to look at rising gas prices, inflation going up. You look at the cost of electricity going up. So when I say our country and we're in dire times. Right? Consumer price index is up 8.2%.
And the world is in dire times. If America falls, the whole world is under communist rule.
We're under the New World Order.
And communism isn't good, guys. You will own nothing, and they will be happy.
Yeah, that's what they said, right?
Yeah, they will own no one, and we will be happy.
Right. They'll own nothing and be happy, right? Happy to get a parcel of food. Happy to get a sandwich. Happy to get a piece of bread.
Watch Black Mirror, guys.
Black Mirror.
It shows the future that we don't want.
Interesting.
And that we can steer away from.
Or you can even look towards something like the Book of Eli. I don't know if you saw that one with I think it was Denzel Washington in there. Right?
Yeah.
You can look at those kind of things in scenarios where water became a commodity. Right.
Yeah.
Water was the biggest issue you had. Was water.
Right.
And the guy that had the control of that pump, if you remember that, he had control of whatever they wanted to do, right? People had to come and they had to pay so much or had to give so much away or even to the point of their children, families, or whatever they had.
We are one generation away from mob jungle rule.
Yep.
Civilization is very fragile.
Well, and Ronald Reagan said it best, right? We're never more than one generation. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction.
Yeah.
And he's true. It's never more than a generation away from extinction. It's every generation has to be prepared to fight for that freedom. Because once freedom goes away, you never get it back.
That's right. Nobody's ever going to give it back to us.
No.
We have to stand and take it. Take our freedom back.
Keep on fighting for it.
Yeah.
Because freedom isn't free. Never has been, never will be.